The massive survey ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, its silver hull gleaming in the distant sunlight. Commander Vale stood on the bridge, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the holographic display of the third planet. His skin shifted from its usual calm blue to a disappointed gray as he watched the primitive satellites orbiting the blue world. Another developing world, he said to no one in particular. Look at their technology. They're still using rocket fuel to reach their own moon. He gestured at the crude space station circling the planet, its solar panels catching the sun's rays. Navigation officer, mark this as a Class 3 civilization in the database. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, most of them not even bothering to look at the main screen anymore. They had visited hundreds of worlds like this one, and the procedure was always the same. Find the primitive species, study them from a distance, and decide if they were worth contacting or better left alone to develop on their own. Science Officer Reed checked the initial scans, his tentacles dancing over the control panel. Sir, they're broadcasting radio waves, television signals, and digital data. Most of it is entertainment and social media. They call themselves humans and their planet Earth. He paused to adjust something on his screen. They've only achieved powered flight about 100 years ago. Vale nodded, his head crest flattening in boredom. Standard procedure then. Monitor their communications, analyze their technology level, and prepare a first contact protocol appropriate for lesser species. He turned to leave the bridge but stopped when Reed made an unusual chirping sound, a sign of confusion in his species. Commander, there might be something unusual here, Reed said, his tentacles twisting in agitation. The atmospheric readings. They don't make sense. I must have calibrated the sensors wrong. Vale turned back, his skin rippling with mild annoyance. Recalibrate and run them again. We need accurate data for the Galactic Council's records. Reed adjusted the sensors and ran the scan again. His chirping grew louder. Sir, the readings are the same. According to this, the planet's atmosphere is over 20% oxygen. That's impossible for a life-bearing world. The oxygen levels alone should make spontaneous combustion a regular occurrence. Now Vale's skin shifted to an interested purple. He moved to Reed's station, his long fingers moving over the display. Show me the full atmospheric composition. The numbers appeared on the screen, and Vale's four eyes widened. Nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide. The mixture would be toxic to most spacefaring races they knew. The temperature variations were extreme, ranging from burning hot at the equator to freezing at the poles. The planet's magnetic field was incredibly powerful, constantly bathing the surface in radiation that would kill most sensitive species. How are they surviving there? Vale whispered. Run a biological scan. I want to know what kind of creatures could evolve in these conditions. The results came back quickly, and the bridge fell silent as they appeared on the main screen. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Their bodies had evolved to use the oxygen as a critical part of their biology, turning what should have been a poison into a source of energy. They could regulate their temperature across a range that would kill most species, and their bodies could repair damage from the constant radiation exposure. Vale's skin turned white, the color of deep thought among his people. Send all this data to the Galactic Council immediately. Mark it as Priority 1. He looked at the blue planet spinning slowly on the main screen, seeing it with new eyes. I don't think this is a standard Class 3 civilization after all. As the data transmitted across space, Vale watched the countless lights of human cities passing through the planet's night side. These creatures had evolved in conditions that would kill most of the galaxy's inhabitants. If they could survive and build a civilization in an environment like that, what else were they capable of? For the first time in his long career as a survey commander, Vale felt something he hadn't expected, uncertainty about what they had discovered. The supposedly primitive humans had just become much more interesting. Science Officer Reed hadn't slept in 3 days. His tentacles were stiff from exhaustion as he ran the atmospheric tests for the 100th time. The results never change. Earth's atmosphere was unlike anything recorded in the Galactic Council's database of 50,000 inhabited worlds. Commander Vale entered the science lab, his skin showing patches of worried yellow. The Council wants more data. They think our equipment might be malfunctioning. He looked at the holographic model of Earth floating above Reed's workstation. Tell me something that will convince them we're not making a mistake. Reed pointed one tentacle at the display. Look at their oceans, sir. They're full of dihydrogen monoxide, what most species consider a universal solvent. These humans don't just live near it. They drink it. They swim in it. Their bodies are mostly made of it. He brought up another display showing human biology. And that's not even the strangest part. Vale moved closer to the display, his 4 eyes focusing on different data points simultaneously. Show me. Their cells have something called mitochondria. These structures use oxygen, pure oxygen, to produce energy. They'd breathe in the very thing that would poison most intelligent life forms and use it to power their bodies. Reed's voice carried a mix of horror and admiration. Their blood is full of iron, sir. They're walking around with metal in their veins. The commander's skin rippled with dark patterns of concern. What about their environmental adaptations? No species should be able to survive such temperature extremes without technology. Reed brought up images from Earth's various climates. They live everywhere, sir. In frozen wastelands, in burning deserts, in humid jungles, even in high mountains where the air is too thin for most species to survive. Their bodies can adapt to almost anything. He paused, his tentacles curling in excitement. And here's something incredible. They can survive for days without sleep, go weeks without food, and their bones can repair themselves when broken. Vale watched videos of humans running long distances, swimming in frozen lakes, and climbing tall mountains. The Council won't like this. A species this resilient, with this much potential. His skin shifted to thoughtful purple. How do they handle the constant radiation from their magnetic field? That's another surprise, sir. The magnetic field we thought would harm them. It protects them from their star's radiation. They evolved under those conditions. Their DNA can repair radiation damage that would kill most species. Reed brought up more data. And their brains, they're constantly producing new neural pathways. They can learn and adapt faster than any species we've studied. A junior scientist rushed into the lab, nearly dropping the data pad in their hands. Sir, we've detected something in their upper atmosphere. It's full of space debris. Vale turned all 4 eyes to the new display. Earth's orbit was cluttered with old satellites, spent rocket stages, and pieces of metal. They're not just surviving up there. They're littering, he said, his skin showing patches of amazed green. Most species would have given up after losing a few satellites to the harsh conditions. These humans just keep launching more. Reed added another layer to the holographic Earth model. And look at their ground-based technology. They've built cities in places that should be uninhabitable. They tunnel under oceans, build bridges across massive water bodies, and construct buildings that reach into the clouds. Their machines work in conditions that would destroy most of our equipment. Vale stared at the slowly rotating hologram of Earth. We thought they were primitive because they haven't mastered faster than light travel yet. But look what they've accomplished while living in an environment that would kill any of our colonists in minutes without protective suits. He turned to Reed. Keep gathering data. I want to know everything about their biology, their technology, their adaptations. The Council needs to understand. We're not dealing with a primitive species. We're dealing with something entirely new. As Vale left the lab, Reed continued his analysis, his fatigue forgotten. On the main display, a video showed humans doing something that made no logical sense to alien minds. They were running a marathon in the desert, pushing their bodies to the limit not because they had to, but because they chose to. In that moment, Reed understood that the humans' greatest strength wasn't just their ability to survive in harsh conditions. It was their desire to challenge those conditions, to push beyond what should be possible, simply because they could. The data analysis room of the survey ship was unusually crowded. Specialists from different departments gathered around a large holographic display showing Earth's geological timeline. Commander Vale stood at the front, his skin shifting between shades of disbelief as each new piece of historical data appeared. "You're telling me they survived all of this?" Vale asked, pointing at the timeline. The display showed a series of catastrophic events that should have wiped out any developing species: multiple ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions. The geological expert, Officer Tam, nodded her crystalline head. "Not just survived, Commander. They thrived. Look at this." She zoomed in on a period roughly 75,000 years ago. A supervolcano eruption here dropped the global temperature and covered much of their world in ash. The human population dropped to a few thousand individuals. "That should have been the end of them," someone muttered from the back of the room. "But it wasn't," Tam continued, her crystal fragments glowing with excitement. "Instead, they spread across the entire planet. They developed different physical characteristics to adapt to each new environment they encountered. Dark skin for high sun exposure, light skin for low-light regions, different eye shapes for different climates, all while remaining the single species." Science Officer Reed extended a tentacle toward the display. "Show them what we found in their cultural records about the last ice age." The hologram shifted to show ancient human cave paintings, tools, and shelters. While their world froze, they didn't just hide in caves, Reed explained. They invented new tools, created art, developed complex languages, and hunted animals much larger and stronger than themselves. They used the hostile conditions to become smarter, more innovative. Vale watched as the timeline advanced, showing humans spreading across continents, crossing oceans in primitive boats, surviving in deserts, jungles, and frozen wastelands. What about more recent history? The display changed to show the last few thousand years. "This is where it gets really interesting," Tam said. "They faced diseases that killed millions, wars that destroyed entire civilizations, climate shifts that ruined their food supplies, and each time, they came back stronger. Look at their population growth," Reed added, bringing up a graph. "After each disaster, their numbers don't just recover, they explode. They learn from each catastrophe, develop new technologies, new medicines, new ways of living. They're the only known species that actively uses near-extinction events as stepping stones for advancement." The room fell silent as they watched humanity's recent history play out. The development of agriculture in multiple locations independently, the rise and fall of empires, the discovery of electricity, two global wars that should have destroyed their civilization, followed by unprecedented technological growth. "Here's what troubles me," Vale said, his skin darkening. "Most species develop technology to make their lives easier, to avoid hardship. But humans," he gestured at the display showing modern Earth, "they created technology that lets them go to even more extreme environments. They climb the highest mountains just because they're there. They dive into ocean trenches that would crush our submarines. They run across deserts for fun." A military analyst stepped forward, her metallic scales reflecting the hologram's light. "They're preparing for something without realizing it," she said. "Every challenge they face, every environment they conquer, every disaster they survive, it's all making them ready for space, not just for exploration, but for living in the harshest conditions the galaxy can offer." Vale turned to face his crew. "The Council thought we were observing a primitive species that needed protection. Instead, we found something unprecedented, a species that evolved in conditions we consider unsurvivable, that treats deadly environments as challenges to overcome, that gets stronger with each disaster instead of being destroyed by it." He looked back at the display, now showing humans building their first space stations, sending probes to other planets, planning Mars colonies. And now they're looking to the stars. They're not doing it because it's safe or easy. They're doing it because it's hard, because it's dangerous, because it's there. The room was silent again as the implications sank in. On the display, a human spacecraft launched toward Mars, carrying people who had willingly left their gravity well to live in the vacuum of space. They weren't running from their harsh world. They were looking for new challenges to overcome. Update the report to the Council, Vale ordered, his skin showing determination. Tell them we haven't found a primitive species that needs protection. We've found humanity. And they're ready for the stars. General Thex's war room aboard the Galactic Council's military command ship was designed to plan invasions of entire star systems. Today, it was focused entirely on a single planet. The holographic display of Earth rotated slowly in the center of the room, surrounded by the Council's top military strategists. Our initial assessment was wrong, Thex said, his armored plates clicking as he moved. Completely wrong. He gestured at the display, and it filled with data about human military capabilities. We thought their weapons were primitive because they still use chemical propellants and physical projectiles. We were looking at it all wrong. A strategic analyst stepped forward, her crystalline form catching the light. Their weapons aren't primitive. They're robust. They function underwater, in sandstorms, in Arctic conditions, even in space. Our energy weapons would falter in half of these environments. Thex nodded, bringing up footage of human military training exercises. Look at how they train. They deliberately practice in the worst conditions possible. Rain, snow, desert heat, high altitude, underwater. The images showed soldiers running through mud, swimming through icy water, surviving in deserts. They call it conditioning, deliberately stressing their bodies to become stronger. But their technology level is still centuries behind ours, one of the younger officers pointed out. They don't even have energy shields. They don't need them, Thex replied. Their bodies can withstand radiation that would kill most species. They can survive extreme temperature changes that would shatter our protective fields. And look at this. He brought up medical data. They can keep fighting with broken bones, missing limbs, severe blood loss. Their bodies automatically seal wounds and fight infections. They call it adrenaline. Their bodies have a built-in combat enhancement system. The room grew quiet as more combat footage played. Humans fighting in conditions that would be considered unsurvivable by Council standards. Operating vehicles in storms that would ground most spacecraft. Building bases in environments that should have been lethal. Here's what really worries me, Thex continued, changing the display to show human history. Every time they fight each other, they get better at it. Each conflict drives huge leaps in their technology. Most species try to avoid war. Humans have turned it into a source of innovation. A combat specialist raised her tentacles. What about their response to overwhelming force? Thex's armored plates darkened, a sign of deep concern. That's the most troubling part. Look at their military history. He showed various battles throughout human history. The more you corner them, the harder they fight. They have countless stories of small forces defeating much larger ones. They don't surrender just because they're outgunned. If anything, impossible odds seem to make them more determined. Surely they have some weaknesses, another officer asked. Of course they do, Thex replied. But they know their weaknesses better than we do, and they're constantly working to overcome them. We track their military communications. Every failed operation, every lost battle, every mistake is studied and learned from. They have entire institutions dedicated to analyzing their failures and finding ways to prevent them from happening again. He brought up more recent data. And now they're looking to space. They're already planning colonies on Mars, a planet that would kill most species in minutes. They're designing weapons that work in vacuum. They're adapting their combat techniques for zero gravity. All this before they even know about the existence of other intelligent life. The strategic analyst spoke again. What's your final assessment, General? Thex's armor plates shifted to a deep, concerned color. If we ever had to fight them, we wouldn't be facing a primitive species learning to adapt to space. We'd be facing a species that evolved in conditions we consider uninhabitable. that treats deadly environments as training grounds, and that has turned overcoming overwhelming odds into an art form. He paused, letting that sink in. And we'd be giving them access to our technology, showing them that there's more out there to fight for. He turned off the holographic display, leaving the room in dim light. My recommendation to the Council is clear. Humanity shouldn't be classified as a primitive species to be conquered or protected. They should be considered a potential military power that has been training for war their entire existence, in conditions that would kill most of our soldiers in their first day of combat. As the briefing ended, one young officer remained, staring at where the Earth hologram had been. "They're not just survivors," she said quietly. "They're warriors forged in an environment that would break most species, and now they're looking to the stars." Fex nodded. "Exactly. We're not discovering humanity. We're witnessing their next evolution. And if there's one thing their history shows, it's that humans never back down from a challenge. They embrace it." The Cultural Analysis Lab aboard the survey ship looked more like a human entertainment center now. Screens covered every wall, each showing different aspects of human media. Officer Reeve and Commander Vale watched in fascination as humans pursued activities that defied alien logic. "They call this entertainment," Reed said, his tentacles gesturing at a screen showing humans climbing an ice-covered mountain. "They're not doing this for food or resources. They're doing it for fun." His voice contained a mix of disbelief and admiration. Vale's skin rippled with confusion as he watched humans diving into ocean depths, base jumping from cliffs, and racing vehicles at dangerous speeds. Most species evolve to avoid danger. Humans seek it out. Look at their sports. He pointed to another screen showing various athletic competitions. "They invented hundreds of ways to compete with each other," Reed explained. "Games that test speed, strength, endurance, many of them dangerous. And millions of humans gather to watch these events." He brought up statistics on professional sports. "They turn survival skills into entertainment." A cultural specialist named Lynn floated into the room, her translucent body glowing with excitement. "You need to see their stories," she said, accessing the main display. "Their entertainment isn't just about physical challenges. Look at their fiction." The screens filled with scenes from movies, TV shows, and video games. Humans fighting monsters, exploring space, surviving apocalypses, overcoming impossible odds. In most of their stories, humans are the underdogs, Lynn continued. They imagine creatures far stronger and more advanced than themselves, and then they write stories about beating them. Are they preparing for something? Vale wondered aloud, his skin showing thoughtful patterns. "No, that's what's fascinating," Lynn replied. "They create these challenges for themselves. Look at their games." She brought up footage of humans playing video games, solving puzzles, and engaging in complex simulations. They voluntarily put themselves in difficult situations, even virtually, just to prove they can overcome them. Reed's tentacles moved excitedly as he accessed more cultural data, and their response to failure is unique. When they fail at something, many of them become more determined to succeed. They have a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." They see failure as a step toward success. The screen showed humans attempting difficult tasks repeatedly, failing at sports, falling while learning to walk, crashing while learning to fly planes, making mistakes while learning new skills. But they kept trying, kept pushing forward. Their entire culture celebrates this mindset, Lynn added. They tell their young stories about persistence and determination. They have countless sayings about never giving up, about pushing through hardship, about facing challenges head-on. Vale watched as more cultural examples played across the screens. Most species design their technology to make life easier, he observed. Humans often use it to push themselves further. They build machines to help them go faster, climb higher, dive deeper, not to avoid these challenges, but to take them to new extremes. And look at how they view comfort, Reed said, bringing up more data. They understand it. They enjoy it. but they don't let it define them. They deliberately leave their comfort zones. They have activities called extreme sports that serve no purpose except to challenge their limits. Lynn's glow pulsed with understanding. I think I see what makes them different, she said. Most species ask, why take the risk? Humans ask, why not? They don't just adapt to survive. They adapt because they want to explore, to compete, to achieve. Vale's skin shifted to a deep shade of realization. They're not just surviving in a harsh environment, he said slowly. They're using it as a training ground. Every challenge their world throws at them, they turn into an opportunity to grow stronger. The screens continue to show humans pushing boundaries, exploring caves, building cities in impossible places, planning missions to Mars. Their entire culture is built around facing challenges, Lynn concluded. It's not just their bodies that evolved in harsh conditions. Their minds did too. They don't just accept challenges, they actively seek them out. As they watched, a new video played. Humans celebrating after achieving something difficult, their faces showing pure joy. That's why we can't treat them like other species, Vale said. We see their world as a hostile environment that should have killed them. They see it as their proving ground. And now they're looking to the stars not because they want to escape their harsh world, but because they see space as their next great challenge. The screens showed humans dreaming of the stars, building rockets, planning colonies. They weren't running from adversity. They were running toward it, arms wide open, ready to embrace whatever challenges the galaxy might hold. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was rarely this crowded. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the circular room, their different forms creating a living rainbow of colors, shapes, and sizes. At the center, Commander Vale stood before the High Council, his skin shifting between nervous colors as he finished presenting his report on humanity. The head counselor, an ancient being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, spoke first. Let us be clear about what you're suggesting, Commander. You want us to completely bypass our normal protocols and offer full membership to a species that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. Yes, Counselor, Vale replied, his skin steadying to a confident blue. The standard protocols don't apply here. We're not dealing with a typical developing species. He gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic images of Earth and its inhabitants. Humans don't just survive in conditions that would kill most of us. They thrive in them. They turn deadly environments into playgrounds. They see impossible odds as a challenge to overcome. A counselor from a gas giant world rippled their cloudy form in disagreement. But they're so violent. Look at their history. Constant warfare, endless conflicts. They're barely at peace with themselves. How can we trust them with advanced technology? General Thex stepped forward, his armor plates gleaming. That's exactly why we should bring them in now, he said. Every conflict they've faced has pushed them to evolve, to innovate, to become stronger. Yes, they're violent, but they're also incredibly cooperative. They fight each other, but they also build global organizations to help each other. They compete fiercely, but they save their worst enemies from natural disasters. Science Officer Reed raised his tentacles for attention. Consider their potential. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. They developed atomic power, computers, and global communications in less than a century. And they did all this while living in an environment that should have killed them. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued for caution, others for immediate contact. The noise grew until the head counselor raised their crystalline arms for silence. What about the salvation protocols? Asked a representative from a water world. We're supposed to protect developing worlds from the harsh realities of the galaxy. These humans seem to need our help. Vale actually laughed, causing several counselors to pulse with shock. With all respect, he said, Earth makes most of our worlds look like paradise. Their gravity is crushing, their atmosphere is corrosive, their weather is extreme, and their biosphere is filled with deadly creatures. They don't need protection from harsh conditions. They master them. The holographic display showed humans living in every environment on Earth: deep seas, frozen poles, burning deserts, high mountains, while we were deciding whether to protect them. Vale continued. They were planning colonies on Mars, a planet we considered uninhabitable. They're not looking for salvation. They're looking for new challenges. A tech specialist floated forward, their mechanical body humming softly. Their technology is fascinating. It's not elegant like ours. It's tough, adaptable, built to work in conditions that would destroy our sensitive equipment. Give them access to our science, and who knows what they might create. The head counselor's crystal form pulsed with thought. You're all missing the larger question. If we accept humans as equals despite their technological level, what message does that send to other developing worlds? It sends the right message, General Thex answered. That we value potential and resilience, not just technical advancement. That a species' worth isn't measured by the elegance of their tools, but by their capacity to overcome challenges. The chamber grew quiet as images of human achievements played across the walls. Their art, their music, their sciences, their dreams of the stars. Look at their space programs, Vale said softly. They know it's dangerous. They've lost people trying to reach orbit. But they keep going, keep pushing forward. Not because it's safe, not because it's easy, but because it's difficult, because it's there. The head counselor rose, their crystalline form catching the light. We must vote. Before us are two options. Treat humanity as a developing world to be protected, or recognize them as equals despite their current technological limitations. Consider carefully. This decision will shape the future of the galaxy. As the council members prepared to vote, a final image appeared, a human child looking up at the stars with wonder and determination. In that small face, the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds saw something both familiar and unique, a species that had been forged in fire, shaped by adversity, and was now ready to take its place among the stars. The United Nations General Assembly Hall had never been so quiet. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in stunned silence as they processed what Commander Vale had just told them. The alien delegation stood on the stage, their various forms drawing curious stares from the assembled humans. Let me make sure we understand correctly, the Secretary General said, leaning forward. You've been watching us because you thought we needed protection, but now you're offering us full membership in your Galactic Council instead. Vale's skin shifted to an amused shade of blue. Yes, though I must admit, your response is not what we expected. Most species show fear or overwhelming awe when they learn they're not alone in the universe. A small laugh rippled through the assembly. Commander, a representative from a small island nation spoke up. We've been making movies about meeting aliens for over a century. We've imagined every possible scenario, from peaceful contact to alien invasions. In a way, we've been preparing for this moment for generations. Reed's tentacles waved with interest as he studied the human reactions. Their vital signs showed excitement, curiosity, and eagerness rather than the terror or worship he'd seen from other first contact situations. There is one thing you should understand, Vale continued. Your world, what you consider normal, is regarded as an extreme environment by most galactic species. The oxygen levels alone would kill many of our members without protective equipment. The humans exchanged glances, and then another round of laughter filled the hall. You mean we've been living on a death world this whole time? A scientist asked from the front row. That actually explains a lot about our history. Vale's skin showed confusion patterns. You seem pleased about this. Of course. A military advisor spoke up. It means we're already prepared for the challenges of space. If Earth is considered extreme, then our experience here has been training us all along. The assembly burst into excited discussion. Instead of being intimidated by learning about advanced alien civilizations, the humans were already asking practical questions. How soon could they establish trade relations? Could they share technology? Were there already human-compatible colonies they could help establish? There is another matter, General Thex said, his armor plates shifting nervously. Many council members were concerned about giving you access to advanced technology, given your history of conflict. The room grew quiet again, but not from fear. The Secretary General stood, her expression serious but confident. General, humanity's history is indeed filled with conflict, but it's also filled with cooperation. We built an international space station while our nations were still pointing nuclear weapons at each other. We created global communications networks that united our people across borders. Yes, we fight, but we also heal, help, and grow together. Vale watched in fascination as humans from nations that had once been bitter enemies nodded in agreement. They weren't trying to hide their violent history or make excuses for it. They were acknowledging it as part of their growth. Besides, as Space Agency Director added, we've already been thinking about the challenges of becoming a spacefaring civilization. We have treaties about weapons in space, plans for colonial governance, and protocols for encountering new life forms. We may not have faster-than-light travel yet, but we've been preparing for it. Reed brought up a holographic display of human space missions. Your species has lost lives in your space exploration, yet you continue. Why? An older astronaut stood up, her face bearing the weathered look of someone who had seen both triumph and tragedy. Because it's what we do. Every frontier humanity has ever faced, we've pushed through. Not because it's safe, but because it's there. Because we want to see what's on the other side. Because we believe the rewards of exploration outweigh the risks. Vale's skin showed the deep blue of respect. The Council made the right decision then. You're not just ready for membership, you might be exactly what the galactic community needs. A species that treats challenges as opportunities, that turns hostile environments into homes, that faces the unknown with determination instead of fear. The Secretary General smiled. Commander, humanity has always looked to the stars and dreamed. Now you're telling us those dreams are within reach. You're not giving us membership in your council. You're giving us our next great adventure. As the assembly erupted in applause, Vale watched the humans already forming committees, making plans, eager to begin. They weren't awed by the vastness of space or intimidated by advanced alien civilizations. They were excited by the challenges ahead. Their harsh world hadn't broken them. It had prepared them. And now, they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do.